Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi here from MST.TV, back with another Market Watch episode. So a bit of a different theme that we're looking at here today. Rather than focusing on cards that are going up, we're mostly going to take a look at cards that you should probably be looking to sell because they will be going down in price in the near future. We just had some leaks from Maximum Gold, Dorado, and Brothers of Legend, so there's a few key cards that you guys will definitely want to make note of so that you can offload whatever extra copies you have. Reprints are almost always going to drag prices down unless you have an original print high rarity version of the card, so take advantage if you can move these cards early on before they officially hit the market. Let's get started. So kicking things off, let's take a look at Downard Magician. This has actually been a popular card for the last few formats ever since the release of Zeus. It's being used by decks that are able to make low rank Xyz monsters such as the Lyralesk or Phantom Knights, since you can slap Downard on top of a rank 1, 2, or 3 monster to get an extra material under Zeus. Really useful because that material could be the difference between blowing up the field just once or twice. Now this card has actually been expensive for a long time, with either of the secret rare versions still being at $38 to $40 and the gold rare is actually up at $35. However, it was apparently leaked that Downard Magician will be receiving a reprint in Brothers of Legend, and that will almost certainly bring down all versions of the card. Obviously, how low depends on how easy it is to pull the reprint, but assuming that it isn't short printed or anything like that, I could definitely see the gold rares tanking all the way down to $5 or so, and then maybe the secrets will retain some more value. Anywhere from 10 to 20 I think is reasonable. Either way though, that's still a massive drop from where they are at currently, so if you can wait a month for this card's reprint, I would go ahead and offload your copies now while they're still up there. The other cards that were leaked from Brothers of Legend were actually a couple of Infernoid Monsters, Infernoid Tiara and Infernoid Decatron. Now over the last several years, Infernoids have popped up here and there as a somewhat popular rogue strategy. However, despite how they're fairly easy to play and somewhat popular with a lot of the player base, the Infernoid cards haven't really seen reprints except for a few cards that were reprinted in their Megatons. Tiara and Decatron were both overlooked and they were only available as the original printings, and they are two key cards for the Infernoid strategy, so it's nice to see them get a little bit of love. Right now, Ultra Tiaras are $10 each while the Ultimate Rares are about $25. And then Decatron only has the one super rare version available at around $8 to $9 each. The thing we need to keep in mind about cards from an archetype like this is that they're only really expensive because they're so hard to find, and once they're reprinted and widely available, people will say that the reprints are nice, but no one will really want to play them or pick them up, so we will end up seeing a lot of excess quantities available on the market, and they should be pretty cheap. Infernoids are a cool deck, but with them coming in an all hollow set in Brothers of Legend, I would definitely look to offload these cards and then just buy them back later at a much more affordable price. I would also look to offload any other Infernoid cards that could be seeing a reprint, such as Void Imagination or Infernoid Perme. Of course, we have yet to see what other archetypes will be reprinted in Brothers of Legend, but between those being reprinted in Maximum Gold, which we'll look at in a few minutes, as well as these in this set, expect a ton of cards to be reprinted that were previously hard to find, and expect their price actions to be similar to what happens to the Infernoid cards. Okay, so next we're on to cards being reprinted in Maximum Gold Dorado. We did see those leaks from a week or two ago, which was kind of cool. So now we're going to talk about a couple of the more notable reprinted cards. Psyframe Lord Lambda is a generic Link 2 monster that was seeing some play the last little while, especially because Gamma was such a popular hand trap. Now, however, I think that Lambda has definitely fallen out of favor, not because Gamma is that much worse of a card, but rather because there are now other generic Link 2 monsters that have to compete for that extra deck spot. With the release of Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, we are going to see more from Artifact Dagda and Verte Anaconda, and of course IP Masquerena is always going to be like a good generic Link 2 monster to end your board with. Keeping that in mind, Lambda was already kind of trending downwards, but this reprint announcement just kind of helped to force the price way down, and the card's now sitting at $15 on TCG Player. What's worth noting is that Lambda was just a rare in Maximum Gold Dorado, not one of these special premium gold rares, and if the prices of the rares from last year's gold series are anything to go off of, Lambda will be at maximum $5, but more realistically just a $1 to $2 card. It should be super accessible and cheap to pick up, so if you don't mind playing the lower rarity, offload your secrets for $10 to $15 now and buy back the cheaper version in just a couple of weeks. The next card I do want to look at on its own here is Rescue Cat, which is, to everyone's surprise, getting an alternate art version in Maximum Gold Eldorado. Rescue Cat has been popular recently because of the Tri-Brigade strategy, as you can use it to get 2 monsters out of your deck, turn them into a Link monster, trigger their effects, and load up your graveyard all with 1 card. Now, to be fair, I don't know if Tri-Brigades will be doing anything different next format. With the release of Burst of Destiny, I could definitely see them using Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, but I don't know if that would mean that they have to cut out Rescue Cat or what. Anyways, Rescue Cat is definitely a much needed reprint, as despite having multiple common and rare printings, the lowest rarity versions of the card are still around $15 to $25. They might be a bit cheaper now that the news has kind of hit. If you guys have the Turbo Pack Super or Duelist Saga Ultra Rare versions of Rescue Cat, I think they are okay to hold on to, since they will retain most of their value, especially the Turbo Pack Supers. I think those won't really change at all. They definitely look a lot cleaner than the Gold Rare in my opinion. However, if you guys own any of the common or rare printings, I would definitely look at offloading them immediately and taking whatever value you can get for them, since I think they will tank in price quite a bit. I think maybe you could see the Turbo or Champion Pack common and rare versions be like $5 to $10, but for the most part, I think they're going all the way down in price, just because the big thing about Rescue Cat is that all of the printings were old, beat up, hard to find. Now that the card is so much more accessible, offload those lower rarity versions while the prices are still fairly high, and just buy a gold rare for yourself to use or have available in a couple of weeks. Okay, so I didn't want to go over every single reprinted card here, but there are some cards from a few notable archetypes that were leaked, and I think they are worth paying attention to. It would be important, though, to think about what other expensive key cards from those archetypes could be included in the set, though of course nothing is guaranteed. So for example, we saw that Prank Kids Roxy's is being reprinted, so I would assume that cards like Prank Kids Place and Dodo Doodle Doo will also be reprinted, being some of the more sought after expensive cards. We saw Ancient Cloak, so maybe Silent Boots or Breaksword will be in there. Numeron Calling was there, so I assume Numeron Network is as well. Cursed Eldland and some of the other Eldritch cards were confirmed, so I would naturally assume that it's basically the rest of the archetype in here. The only notable Dino cards left are Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and Oviraptor, both of which were included, and then I think there was like also a Weather Painter card, so maybe Snow and Rainbow or something like that. It's too difficult to say for sure exactly what's worth reprinting and what's going to be excluded, but it's definitely something that we can make some educated guesses about. It doesn't make sense to assume that all cards from each archetype are going to be reprinted, but just like last year's Maximum Gold, we could assume that it'll be a few cards from a wider variety of archetypes that will be included. Now, in the spirit of a regular market watch, there are a few other cards that are trending on the market currently that are worth paying attention to. The first is Harpy's Featherstorm, a normal trap that is basically a blanket negation for all of your opponent's monster effect activations, as long as you control a winged beast monster, which is pretty nutty. Now, this card is meant to be played by Harpies, but you can actually play this card in the Flowandereeze deck. Having a Harpy is just a condition to activate it from your hand, but Flowandereeze are also winged beast monsters, so you can play this as a normal trap card instead. It seems really good in theory, though I haven't seen any Flowandereeze builds playing it yet. However, because of the potential that this card has, we've seen all versions of this card jump in price across the board. The first printing, an ultra rare from Duelist Saga, is now anywhere from $10 to $15 each. The super rare reprint from a Legendary Duelist set are $6 to $10, and then the commons, which are from Legendary Duelist Season 2, are actually all the way up at $5 each, which is kind of crazy to me. That's actually what tipped me off on this card. I saw someone post the commons on Facebook for $5 each. I thought that person was crazy, but then I checked and I was like, hey. Anyways, this is a really cool tech for the Flowandereeze deck that I quite like, but how this card's price changes in the future depends on just how viable and meta relevant the Flowandereeze deck will actually be here in the TCG. I do think that this card has a lot of potential though, especially with the Flowandereeze getting a new support card in Battle of Chaos, so I think that picking up a set of this card now might not be a bad idea if you're wanting to pick up and play the deck. Next up is a kind of cool card. It is Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. This card is pretty simple. It's an extra deck monster that you can contact fusion summon using Cyber Dragon and then a monster in either player's extra monster zone, so it doesn't require an activation or anything like that. Basically, it's a free out to your opponent's Appaloosa or whatever they have that they're showing in the extra monster zone that's kind of slowing you down, though obviously it's an out to only the one monster, not a bunch of different things. So I believe that this card is trending upwards because of the Cyberdark structured deck, which I think uses Cyber Dragon Core, who can be treated as Cyber Dragon while it's on the field. A neat little trick. Mega Fleet has been trending up in price over the last month or so. The card has 2 printings out, the ultra rare from the legendary Dragon decks, and then the secret rare from Battles of Legend Armageddon. So if you think about it, this card is actually quite difficult to find running around out there in people's binders, especially since Battles of Legend Armageddon wasn't that great of a set, and I don't think a ton of people open very much of it. Anyways, if you do have this card, it is no longer a $2 card, it's actually worth a fairly decent amount, so look at digging this card out of your holo bulk and offloading it if you're not planning on using it. Alright, the final card I want to take a look at today is Gravity Collapse, a card that we did touch on previously. Gravity Collapse is a pretty simple counter trap, allowing you to negate a summon by sending a synchro monster you control to the graveyard, but the important part of this card is that it has an extra effect, preventing your opponent from summoning until the end phase of this turn. So it actually has something to set it aside and make it worth playing as an alternative to Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike. I can only assume that this is seeing a bit of attention now because of the Sword Soul deck, which is the main upcoming meta deck that uses a bunch of synchro monsters. Obviously, it does feel a bit situational, and I feel like there are probably a lot of times where you're better off using like a Solemn Judgment or some other alternative, but who knows, it might make an interesting tech or side deck card. Now, this card doesn't have any holo printings available. There are only low rarity versions. Its first printing was as a rare from Starstrike Blast, but fortunately it was also reprinted as a common in OTS Tournament Pack 13. The rares are worth about $4 and the commons are a couple of bucks as well, so it's worth more than the 50 cents to $1 that the card was at about a month or 2 ago. But yeah, I think this card is cheap enough that you might want to pick up a couple of commons if you're wanting to play Sword Soul this format just in case. Aside from that, this is also to let you guys know that Gravity Collapse is a card that's actually worth a couple of bucks. You guys should definitely be digging this card up out of your bulk, setting them aside and having them available to offload if you can. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. It's actually pretty crazy how many reprints we have coming up, with Maximum Gold Dorado and Brothers of Legend coming out just a couple of weeks apart from one another, and then they also announced Ghosts from the Past 2 for next year as well. Hopefully we will see some more leaks soon. To be honest, I wasn't too crazy about a lot of what was shown for Maximum Gold Dorado, so I hope there's some other stuff that just hasn't been revealed yet. Anyways, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please let me know by leaving a thumbs up for me. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about Maximum Gold Dorado and Brothers of Legend and the cards we talked about today, and also what other cards are trending on the market so I can cover them in a future episode as well. Also, if you haven't already, make sure that you guys subscribe to get all of the latest content from both Tombox and myself. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.